Donald Trump and the Republican Party is now focusing on the latest scapegoat for the Parkland mass shooting that took place in a high school campus in Florida. Now, 17 people were shot and killed, and people are debating the issue of gun control. But Trump wants to focus on the issue of a school resource officer who got word of the mass shooter and did not go into the campus to stop him. Now, during CPAC, Trump addressed the cop, and it did lead to some ramifications for this former resource officer who has since stepped down from his job. He took early retirement. Take a look at what Trump had to say.
You know what else? And I thought of it since I found and watched Peterson, the deputy who didn't go into the school because he didn't want to go into the school, okay? He was tested under fire, and that wasn't a good result. But you know what I thought of as soon as I saw that? These teachers, and I've seen them at a lot of schools where they had problems. These teachers love their students, and the students love their teachers in many cases. These teachers love their students, and these teachers are talented with weaponry and with guns. And they feel safe. And I'd rather have somebody that loves their students and wants to protect their students than somebody standing outside that doesn't know anybody and doesn't know the students, and frankly, for whatever reason, decided not to go in, even though he heard lots of shots being fired inside. And the beauty is it's concealed. Nobody would ever see it unless they needed it. It's concealed. So this crazy man who walked in wouldn't even know who it is that has it. That's good. It's not bad, that's good. And a teacher would have shot the hell out of him before he knew what happened.
So that was actually the second time that Trump identified the school resource officer who did not go into the school as he got word that a mass shooting was taking place. And understand the framing of what Trump is using there. He's talking about how teachers love their students. The teachers would have done something about it. Basically making it seem as though this resource officer didn't love the students, didn't care about protecting them. Look, the officer was a 30-year veteran. He did not do what he was supposed to do. So Trump is right in that regard. And so I'm not gonna take away from that argument. However, he is not the reason why these mass shootings happen. He is not the reason why 17 people were gunned down. And to make it seem as though this guy is the only person we should be focusing on and that he doesn't love the students, teachers love students. And by the way, Trump said that these teachers are skilled in weaponry. Based on what evidence? Based on what?
Yeah, that's just made up. So a couple of quick points here. When he said, it's concealed, that's a good thing. Wait, why is that a good thing? I don't understand his logic. His logic is if the shooter knows, he explained this at length throughout the week, that if the shooter knows there are people with guns inside the building, they're cowards and they won't come in. Okay, so what difference does it make if they're concealed or not concealed? Because you just told everybody, and presumably the shooter has to know that there are weapons for your strategy to work. So, but it's a good thing, not a bad thing. Based on what? I mean, there's just no logical flow in anything he says. The armed guard is also armed, so the shooter would know that there's someone armed in the building. And why would an armed guard, like normally, on average, do worse than a teacher whose job is not to shoot students,
right,
but to teach them? That makes no sense at all. So what does he do? He has to rely on this guy not going in the building to buttress his insane argument that somehow teachers would be better than cops at shooting people. And this guy, look, what he did, of course he should have gone in. For the president to name him and to publicly shame him like that, that's crazy. He's now got armed guards protecting his house. I mean, number one, I would imagine that he feels horrific at this point, right? Number two, he let down the whole community and they've got to feel anger, disgust, sadness, etc. That's also weighing on him. Number three, you know Republican trolls. God, the things they must have said to him by now. And for the president to pile on to a citizen like that, It's the usual insanity we've gotten to know with Donald Trump.
Because they want a scapegoat. Any scapegoat will do as long as it will prevent them from talking about actual common sense gun legislation. They don't want to focus on the real problem. They want to focus on symptoms of the problem.
Absolutely. And a lot of stuff you just said operate on a very human level, right? This guy's feeling bad. He was wrong to not go in,
right.
But to add to the human level, both my parents were teachers for over 30 years. And I'm trying to imagine my mom, their 96-pound frame, who already has enough stress in her life and is caring a lot for the students, being told to go learn how to shoot a gun. That makes no sense. So it is inspiring that real solutions finally are part of the debate again. But this scapegoatism is really problematic.
It's terrifying. And also think about how underpaid teachers are, how underappreciated they are. And so there might be some teachers that are comfortable shooting who might be okay with the idea of them carrying a weapon onto campus, but there are a lot of teachers who aren't okay with that. So does it mean that in order to qualify as a teacher in the United States, you not only have to be passionate and skilled when it comes to teaching, but you also have to be a sharpshooter and ready and willing to protect your students with a firearm at any given moment? That's absurd. There's so many great teachers out there who have no interest in holding a gun, and no one should be forced to have a gun or carry a gun if they want to educate young people.
You mentioned your parents, Adam, and that immediately made me think of my teachers. And my teacher that made the biggest difference in my life was Mrs. Rosenberg in 4th grade. And I'm picturing Mrs. Rosenberg with a gun. It's preposterous. It's insanity, man. And you know what? You know who else is a teacher? Anna's a teacher. So they want you to, she's a professor at CSUN. So what do they want you to now, like, carry a pistol to, and remember this, one of the students made the best point yesterday. He said, that it's either usually students or former students. So you'd be training the teachers to kill their students.
It's crazy, and it's one thing to think about how someone would react theoretically if an incident like that were to occur. But it's another thing to actually shoot someone and to kill someone, right? And I think it's easier said than done. I think people, on the right are making the assumption that anyone would be comfortable just shooting and killing someone. If it was a mass murder, it's a lot easier said than done. Yeah. Excuse me.
One thing I'm curious about is, you saw those people give a standing ovation at CPAC for the stuff he was saying. And I'm curious how representative that is of the larger kind of Republican or conservative-oriented voter back home, right? These are a bunch of political operatives, basically, who have a political incentive and a professional incentive to clap for him. But I'm curious whether Republican moms and dads back home actually believe that they want teachers to be armed with their kids in the classroom.
Well, so there's some evidence that they are not comfortable with it, because the new poll out, well, both ways here, says that 33% of Americans like the way that Donald Trump has handled this shooting. So 2/3 saying no, this is not the right way to go. So that's comforting. 2/3 of the country is a very significant majority. Of course, among Republicans, 70% say he nailed it. And Adam, it's another great point. As I looked at that crowd, I thought, I don't know who I'm more disturbed by. This buffoon man-child, this president, going around and giving speeches, calling out individual citizens and then going, it's not bad, it's good. Or the buffoons who are clapping for him and giving him a standing ovation like, oh, this guy nailed it. That's a very stable genius who we look up to.
Well, those are the people who put him in power. So I would argue those are the people that you should be more concerned with. And that's what I'm more concerned about, right? We have these debates about propaganda on social media, on bad actors trying to spread false, misleading information. And what concerns me the most is not just that happens, but how easily Americans fall for that kind of stuff, right? These are the people who go to the polls, they vote, and they're the ones who elected this guy. That buffoon's been around for a very long time. He's been around for over 70 years at this point. He was never a threat until Americans made him a threat.
What you just watched was one of the videos that we do today, but we actually do a whole 2-hour show every single day. It's a podcast. You could watch it in video or listen to it as audio. You can download it, you can stream it, and you get it completely ad-free if you could become a member of the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.